Hi, sweeties. How are you all doing? I came across this video. A lot of them are speaking up. A lot of white people are speaking up. Why? Because they can see what they have done and the things they are still doing to this very moment when it comes to people that look like me. Especially when you've had your aha moment. And this one was talking about how all these are going to are affecting the wife and him and the children. Why? Because he got married to a black woman. So, and the other one also is trying to explain the difference between institutional and interpersonal racism. And he is saying that I don't know how black people will continue to explain the same thing to them over and over again. You know, the truth is that trying to educate them doesn't work because they already have their mindset. Trying to understand the complex of the things of their ancestors did and the ones they are also doing today, because majority of them took over from their ancestors and they are really very good at it. Stephen Miller and the rest, they are really portraying their ancestors very well. But the universe is bigger than them. All those things that they see and still sit back and look you dead in the eyes and tell you that you guys should get over it. Let's get into this video.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to speak about this as a father and a husband in a multiracial family of 6. And there's a lot of dualities that go into that. But I want to share this with other white people so you can get some more perspective as well. First off, I know that I present this same threat that I'm going to be talking about. And so I have to operate within that in how I interact with my community. But the thing is, with Charlie Kirk, if I know you are not actively, openly anti-racist, you are not safe around my family as another white person. So if I saw you mourn Charlie Kirk, if I saw you be quiet, if I saw you again try to both sides this shit, I'll never let you around my family. And I think when white people hear this, sometimes just like, oh, you're just trying to be edgy, or you're just, making things too political. No, I'm going to tell you why. Because you cannot see my family outside of me as human beings. You would rather let everyone else know that you feel empathy for a dead white supremacist, and then expect empathy back from communities you don't even see as human beings. Again, all these communities that were actively targeted by Charlie Kirk, you think they should be like, oh yeah, that's such a big loss. Or yeah, we understand you feel sad. Why the fuck do you expect that? Mind you, some of you are the same white people that are holding hands with the people that agreed with Charlie Kirk when he said that George Floyd was a scumbag. You're holding hands with the same white people that shared memes and made jokes about George Floyd being murdered, or Breonna Taylor being murdered, or Ahmaud Arbery. Like, the list goes on. You're holding hands with them in this massive fucking meltdown that you're having. And you think, again, the communities that were targeted by Charlie Kirk should give you space to grieve or be empathetic and understanding as to why you feel bad. You will humanize a white supremacist over a black, indigenous person of color, over the queer community, over the immigrant families. You spend your days actively dehumanizing these communities, just like Charlie Kirk did, which is an act of violence. And then again, you want those communities to understand it doesn't fucking make sense. It's illogical. And so I know when some white people hear, the black indigenous communities of color don't trust you, you think it's reverse racism, which isn't a thing. But I'm telling you, as a white man, again, with a multiracial family, that I would not fucking trust you either around my kids, around my wife. And I'm going to do what the fuck she tells me. So if she doesn't trust you, I sure as fuck don't trust you. Again, this has been said a lot, but it's not racist and not racist. You're either racist or anti-racist. There's no in between. And if you're too scared to have those conversations, if you're too scared to stand up to your family, friends, circles, coworkers that are white, why would I let you be in the same space in a friendship setting or relational setting around my black wife, my black and biracial and Latino children? You got to be out of your fucking mind. There's no way. Because I know when shit gets hard, you're going to fold. And complacency equals racism. And complacency and comfortability and quiet and silence is violence. And I know a lot of you won't listen when black, indigenous, or communities of color tell you that. But I'm telling you as a white man that I would not fucking trust you within 100 yards of my family. While simultaneously knowing, again, that I present the same threat to people that don't know me. Because I'm a 6 foot, 290 pound, fully tattooed white man. You think I walk around expecting people to look at me and automatically trust me? Fuck no. I know we live in open white supremacy. I know we live in a patriarchal society. I know I benefit from a white supremacist system that I'm directly a part of. I know these things in my head. So I do not walk around expecting automatic trust. I expect the opposite, and I understand why, and I do not emotionally break down and lose my fucking mind because I can't handle the truth. So anyways, yeah, complacency equals racism. I think based on our ancestral damage and the way the power structure is set up in the United States, I think white people subconsciously believe violence is the only way to maintain the power that was forcefully taken from literally everyone else throughout history. And when there has been centuries of white people dehumanizing literally every other person, including ourselves, when the collective of white people feels like we are going to lose power and privilege, then the collective white reaction is violence under the guise of justice. That's why white people usually cheer when black men, women, or children, or black, indigenous people of color get murdered by the cops, because it just reinforces the dehumanization that is literally in our DNA. So when there's a perceived crumbling in the power structure, white people collectively respond in our default setting, which is violence. So ultimately, to maintain white supremacy and our privilege, and to maintain the dehumanization of literally everyone else.
I can't even begin to fathom how exhausting and frustrating it must be for the vast majority of black people in this country to explain racism to people, to try to educate people on the facts, the data, the historical context, understanding complex and nuanced concepts. You know what I'm seeing from so many white people right now in my community, and it drives me absolutely insane. And the truth is, I used to do it. The tokenization of a handful of black people to try to justify their racism. They're going above and beyond to say Charlie Kirk couldn't have been racist. There's no possibility of him being racist. Why? Because here's this black person who said he's not racist. Like, the only reason racist white people like Candace Owens is because she supports their narrative. She's adopted the politics of white supremacy. She's assimilated and profited from the grift. Let Candace Owens step out of line and watch what happens. We saw it in real time with Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. Take the time to get educated and learn the difference between institutional racism and interpersonal racism. Stop conflating the two. You can have all the black friends in the world, and it's not going to save you from upholding a system that is inherently racist. And I'll just take the criminal justice system because I believe it's the epicenter of systemic racism in the United States of America. It needs zero racists to keep operating the way that it's operating today because it was set in motion by racism. And let's take it all the way back to the beginning, the birth of this nation. Let's take it to the Civil War, the abolishment of slavery. The 13th Amendment was the abolishment of slavery, except when punishment for a crime. Crime became the loophole for legalized slavery. Well, why is this important? Because right after they freed enslaved black Americans, they started to lock them back up in chain gangs. They created literal laws that targeted black people in the form of black codes. If you don't know what black codes are, look it up. Black people were arrested for not having a job when no white person would give them a job. They were arrested for being out past curfew. They were arrested for loitering in the streets. You know, when you go to a convenience store and you see the no loitering sign, that dates all the way back to the black codes. Fast forward 100 years and you had Jim Crow segregation. Jim Crow segregation made black Americans second-class citizens, which they were already that in this country. They had to pass literacy exams and pay poll taxes in order to vote. They were disenfranchised from voting. They were discriminated for employment, housing, education, bank loans, all based on the color of their skin. There was redlining, gerrymandering, prison gerrymandering. Look all these terms up. Then most white Americans, most white Republicans will say, well, we passed the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which says we can no longer discriminate based on race. And you can even throw in the 1968 Fair Housing Act. According to MAGA, racism ended. Nobody cares about the color of the skin, it's only the content of the character. Well, after the Civil Rights Movement, after all of that, we had a 700% increase in our prison population. We went from 300,000 inmates in 1970 to as high as 2.1 million in 2010. Now here's the kicker. 1 in 3 black males carry convicted felon label, 1 in 6 Hispanic males, 1 in 17 white males. Despite black males being 6.5% of our overall population and black people in general being 13% of our overall population, they make up 40% of our incarcerated population. Well, why is this? Because in 2025, there's one group of people that you could treat the same way you treated black people years ago, during Jim Crow segregation, during Black Reconstruction, during the time of the Black Codes. There's one group of people that you can treat like that. Convicted felons. Now, do you think it's a coincidence that 1 in 3 black males carry a convicted felon label? Convicted felons, you can disenfranchise from voting, you can deny housing, jobs, education, employment, and you can relegate to living in certain communities. But this is the problem. Most white Americans, including Charlie Kirk, will believe that black people are hyper-criminal, that they are inherently criminal or inherently evil or inherently violent. They will say things, well, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. They'll say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Stop being the victim. Take personal accountability for your actions. And the truth of the matter is, if you're white and you're in this country and you still support this mass incarceration, this form of racism, because it is racist, the numbers do not lie. No amount of proximity to black people, no amount of black friends will exempt you from upholding the politics of white supremacy in a system that was designed to target black Americans.
Okay, we're going to keep going down the deconstruction rabbit hole. Again, I was in the white evangelical church, indoctrinated since I was a child. Was in for 30 plus years and then got out some years back. I also went to a Christian high school, and elementary, and middle school. Y'all remember having to do the pledge every morning? Not only to the American flag, but to the Christian flag. For what? Pledge allegiance to either of those flags for what? Both of those pledges are to white supremacy. And so this is a small piece of how they started to indoctrinate us as young children. I do not pledge allegiance to any fucking piece of fabric. Especially the one that says in liberty and justice for all, because that's a fucking lie. right? Because then they're gonna teach us history right after we do that fucking pledge. And then we go into, hey, let's learn today about how white people came over from England and spread disease and murdered a whole fucking lot of indigenous peoples. But it's okay, right? Because we did it in the name of Jesus, right? So it's this normalization of white violence. They use the Bible to justify chattel slavery, use the Bible to justify murder, genocide against black people, against indigenous people. That's what the fuck we were pledging to, by the way. It's a pledge of allegiance to maintain violent white supremacy. And we have to go back to the roots of our indoctrination. It can't start from here, from the current day, because it goes much deeper than that. Racism, white supremacy, bigotry was engrafted into our minds since we were children. And then it became normalized. In the whitewashed history we learned, and the way they tried to frame and spin the Bible, at church, at youth group, on mission trips. Yeah, I went on those too. And they're just colonizer behavior. This idea that every other community, country that is not white needs a white savior to come in and help out. Meanwhile, we're disrupting those cultures, those communities, prioritizing ourselves, what we think is best for a whole bunch of non-white people that have been thriving apart from us forever. So then when you have communities that tell us white people as a collective to leave them the fuck alone, then again, it reinforces that victimization, that narcissism, that, oh my God, they just hate us because we're Christians. But we're doing the right thing. And God told us that we'd be hated. So then you double down, you triple down, you keep pushing, right? That's what the church teaches you. Be in the world, not of the world, right? So then I can separate my existence from everyone else, that I am truly set apart as a white Christian, and that I am going to be a martyr while simultaneously be the savior, just like white Jesus was. But they continue to miss the justice piece, right? They miss the part where Jesus was murdered by the state. They miss the part where Jesus was a refugee. They miss the part where Jesus wasn't fucking white. They miss the part where Jesus says to stand up for the oppressed. They kind of gloss over that shit and then make white evangelical Christians the oppressed. Meanwhile, we are all sitting here benefiting, especially as white Christian men that have the most privilege in this country. That's why you see white Christian men losing their fucking mind right now, because so many of us are pushing back against the ideals of white evangelical Christianity. And again, it's playing itself out in real time, right? The greatest threat in this country is white domestic terrorism, specifically white men. You got little white kids going into school shooting it up. You got white men going into black churches shooting them up. You got white men going into primarily black neighborhoods and shooting up people at the grocery store. You have white people responding to Charlie Kirk's shooter, who was also white, by threatening historically black colleges and universities. Where is the justice? Where is the unconditional love? Where is the recognition of the oppression happening in this country? You cannot be the oppressed as a white evangelical Christian and also the one that carries out the most violence. Simultaneously, the White House is trying to say, take that shit off the list. We don't want to recognize white domestic terrorism. Get the fuck out of here. Anyone that has eyes and ears, we see that clearly every fucking day on this app and out in real life. And we have to, as ex-evangelical Christians, come to terms with that. right? Because you cannot move forward until you accept the indoctrination that we've had. Can't make excuses for it. This can be a reason why we have, a specific worldview. But you also have to accept that we are the ones that have also carried out harm. And then you have to make a conscious decision to deconstruct that shit every fucking day. And make sure you stop the harm that we carry out as an oppressive class. It's very simple. And the more you start to deconstruct, it becomes very clear. Don't ever pledge allegiance to the American flag. Don't ever pledge allegiance to the Christian flag. Recognize collective humanity. Recognize your own humanity. You are much more than a vessel of Christ, a vessel of white Jesus. You are much more than a missionary or a fucking colonizer. We lose our identity in that shit. Figure out what justice means on a collective scale. Learn about systemic racism. Learn about white supremacy. Listen to Black, Indigenous communities of color tell you their experience with us. You gotta let go. You gotta let go of this idea that continuing colonization equals eternal life, because it fucking doesn't. It's what it is.
I'm a former white Christian nationalist. I'm a former Trump supporting Republican. I went to the extreme of joining a white supremacist organization in prison, not because I was in fear of my life or because I needed protection. I'm 6'3", 230 pounds. I was in Florida work camps, which are low-level camps, and Florida is not segregated by gangs like much of the West Coast of the United States. In fact, the reason why I joined a white supremacist organization in prison was because of my politics at the time. My first 7 years, I never joined a gang. Finally, it was at the height of the Black Lives Matters movement and Trump campaigning for president. And I bought into the narrative that the white man was being discriminated against in this country, that reverse racism was happening, that we were under attack, that we were being blamed for everything that ever happened in this country and because of what our ancestors did. I was uneducated, misinformed, and outright ignorant. I currently have deconstructed and spend much of my time doing the work of anti-racism, but there are many people in my community who have been raised to be white Christian nationalists but don't understand that that's what they are. They tell me that my narrative is extreme, but I know that they've adopted the same ideology and narrative and way of thinking that I was raised to believe. When the Black Lives Matters protests happened, rather than listening and validating their experience and understanding why so many black people in our nation were upset, we created a protest to their protest. The same thing with trans people. Rather than listen and validating their experience, you treat them as if they're subhuman and say, quit shoving it down our throat. And the same thing with gay people. White Christian nationalists love to tell gay people, I don't care that you're gay, what you do and who you love in the confines of your home is okay. Just don't shove it down our throat. I shouldn't have to see that in public or in Disney movies or in commercials. And by the way, marriage is a holy sacrament from God between a man and a woman. I didn't make the rules. It comes from God. Or abortion is murder and nobody can judge but God. But by the way, I'm pro-death penalty and I get to determine whose life is sacred, whose life is worthy of sparing, whose life is worthy of executing. Another favorite line of white Christian nationalists, we don't care about immigrants being here, just do it the right way. Then Trump removes the legal status of over 500,000 immigrants, and it's crickets. Immigrants get arrested at their court hearings for doing it the right way, crickets. Or how about this one from white Christian nationalists? Arabs and Muslims are jihadists and terrorists. They're extreme beliefs and they want Sharia law here in the United States of America. And they're not a peaceful religion. And by the way, there's only one true living God and his name is Jesus Christ. And if you're worshiping Muhammad or Allah, you're worshiping the false God. You hear that all the time in these American churches. And when you debate with any of these people, they will tell you, well, this is a Christian nation founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And when you come here, you need to adopt our culture and assimilate and learn our language, the English language. And honestly, it's just blah, blah, blah. Just say you're racist, xenophobic, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, and you're mediocre at best, and you got small d energy. And you tell everybody else to stop being sheep and beta boys and soy boys and stop being the victim and accept personal accountability for your actions, because your projection is always a confession, because the call always comes from inside the house.
This is all I got from this video. And even until the last day he was unalive, that was also his belief. He also believed that black people do not deserve anything. Black people are this, black people are that. Even his last word on that day was about to talk about people that look like me, and that was the end of it. The truth is that I love to see white people wake up by themselves, because I mean, my people have talked all they can, and it's left for you people to wake up and know that you guys are being used against your own selves too, and against my own people. Because tell a white man that he is better than a black man, watch a black man even rob him straight up without even him rob his pocket without him knowing. That means that you all knew that all these things are happening, but because you all want to continue to feel superior, that's why some of you are not speaking up or saying anything about it. Like everything he's, especially that all of them, they did not lie. Everything they said is true. Especially when it comes to after slavery and all that. The day I learned about this, I was crying. How many years? Okay, 4 years ago when I started learning black, that was when I started reading black history. And then I read about Vagrant's law. I was like, why? Why would I know there have been other things that they did, but that one touched my soul. Why did it touch my soul? It touched my soul because these people were the ones that said, oh, who already set them free. And my people were then, looking for a way to live their life and start up something for themselves. People that left somewhere else to a different place, trying to probably get job, get accommodation and all that. And you decided again to enact a Vagrant's law. You must be one of the most wicked person whoever created. That really broke my heart. So why did you release them? Why did you release them? If you were going to do all that. And then when they see them going out to look for daily bread, they arrest them and put them back again in the plantation. And somebody from nowhere will tell my people to get over it. Get over what? What do you want them to get over? That your ancestors did them dirty. There is this thing that I always say here. Have you ever seen where somebody asked you to help him carry a bag of salt, and immediately you carry the salt and put it on your head? They started spraying you water. Does the person like you? Of course, the person doesn't like you. That was the things my people had to endure in order to also put food in their children's mouth, because some of them came out with their family looking for a way to survive. They literally look for every possible means to take away everything that they have or they will have, to render them I don't want to use useless, to make sure that they do not rise, that they still depend on them. Man, forget it. That's why they are no longer proud of their own history. And they are looking for a way to, it wasn't that bad, because it's still something that they teach people. Man. I will draw the curtain here. Bye for now.